SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Leading the conversation. 9 to midday, The Talking Point on SAFM.
10 minutes past 10. This is The Talking Point on SAFM 104 to 107 FM nationwide. A university degree is a valuable commodity to have when entering the job market, particularly in the economy that is sluggish like ours, and fewer companies are hiring new employees. According to Leana de Beer, Chief Operations Officer for the crowdfunding platform in South Africa, Feenix, and they argue that, and it's unfortunate that a growing number of people in South Africa are getting caught for faking their credentials. Figures released by the South African Ministry of Higher Education show that there's a spike in reported cases from 47 incidents in 2010-11 financial year to 982 in the 2017-18 financial year of people who fake their credentials. Leana de Beer joins us now, Chief Operations Officer at Feenix. Did I get that right? Feenix.
Perfect, Bongi. Yes, that's Feenix.
Thank you very much. Good morning. It points to desperation. I mean, if you look at in just how many years? 7 years, 7 financial years, you have this spike from 47 to 982, and we're talking about reported only. Some of them people have not been caught, so they are working, they are comfortable. But the reported ones and those that have been verified and investigated. So, what does this point to?
Well, absolutely. We see that there is a spike in people faking their credentials. And if we look at the reported numbers, there's always the assumption that that is only a portion of what happens in reality. We also saw last year in August, the presidency has decided to take a stronger stance against people faking their credentials. And they've changed the laws, they've strengthened legislation. So we have a legislation in South Africa called the National Qualifications Frameworks Act. And they've strengthened this legislation which makes faking your credentials or lying on your credentials a criminal offense. So what this means for people going forward, if you get caught out, you will be prosecuted. And that prosecution can be anything from a fine up until 5 years in prison. And that's not the worst of it. If you get caught out, SAFA, the South African Qualifications Authority, can now put your name on a registry. And if you get caught out, or if you applying for a new job, or you're trying to enter the already competitive job market, and a company or employer decides to run you on this registry, and they find out that you are flagged or you've lied, this could damage your future prospects, and that lives forever. So the laws have become more and more stringent and more specific on this, which means lying has now got a lot of consequences.
Yeah. So let's get a difference then between lying and faking your credentials and just embellishing your CV just a little bit and make it vague. For instance, saying that I studied accounting in my CV, and and I don't say I completed it or not. I just say I studied accounting, and put that as an achievement. I would have studied accounting, yes, maybe I would not have finished it, but I studied it, and I mentioned there that I studied it. So just embellishing a little bit at times, and saying that I attended, whether I completed or not, I attended the University of Sussex, and make it big. Yes. So how much of a problem is that?
And I think a lot of people actually bring up this point because, that saying, fake it until you make it. And everyone's like, well, I'm just going to fake it until I make it. But it is concerning because, like I said, if you get caught up, there's real consequences now, which wasn't as strong before. We are from the stance, as a young company that employs a lot of young people, that first of all, don't do it. It's not being transparent. You'll get yourself into trouble, and if you make that mistake now and you get caught out, whether you believe you've embellished a little bit or whether you've lied, I don't want to go into the ethics of that because I think there's a lot of grey areas and a lot of different opinions. We're coming from the point of saying it's not worth it. It's not worth gambling your future for that embellishment. But that brings us into the problem of why do people feel the need to lie or embellish, right? That's, I think, the key question here. And I think with unemployment, as you said, the economy is sluggish, the job market is competitive, and with unemployment rising, especially if we look at unemployment with youth, unemployment is currently sitting at 29%. It's a record high since 2008. But for young people between 15 and 24, that number is over 50%. It means almost half of every young person between 15 and 24 looking for work is unemployed. So there's a lot of desperation, anxiety, and stress for young people trying to just get their first job. So add that on top of not having access and finances to get into education. Top that on, add then everything else in terms of black tax and inequality. You can start understanding why people might feel the need to embellish or lie. We also see what happens with a lot of young people is they finish their diploma or their degree if they're lucky enough to go and study further after high school. And then they finish their degree, but they don't have the money to pay for their last bit of outstanding fees. The university won't issue their fee statement to them. So now they're in this weird trap. They don't have money to pay, but they can't find a job without the degree. And often in this weird historical debt trap, people are then inclined to try and maybe embellish a little bit. And that's where Feenix comes in, and that's what I represent you today. And we try and help young people and students with historical debt by helping them fundraise for that historical debt so that they're not in that trap. They've done the work, they've proven themselves, they just want to enter the job market. I think, Bongi, also another big concern, and the thing we don't talk about, is employers' expectations. I think there's a mismatch between young people's needs and where young people are versus what employers want. And we put way too much pressure on what is on a piece of paper, what's on a CV, what is on your, whether you studied accounting, whether you have whatever is on your fee statement or academic records or on your CV is important, but it's not as important as your work ethic, as your talent, as your potential, as your values. And we need to look at those things as well. And if we start employing people, young people especially, based on their talent and potential and their attitudes, then the other things should not matter as much. And we don't always do that in the working environment. And therefore, I think there's even more pressure on young people to lie.
You're raising a very important point, the input and the output. Now, companies will have a certain expectation of somebody who possesses certain credentials and qualifications. And you'll find that when they put you through your paces, they pick up that, the output that you have, that you demonstrate you have, is actually not sufficient for the environment that they are in. So it talks about then relooking the entire education system.
Of course, I mean, that's a whole different conversation, but it is a very, very valid question. I don't think we as Feenix are definitely advocating for tertiary education. We feel that there's still value in tertiary education, especially in a competition job market. People with qualifications past high school have a bigger chance of getting employed. And we believe that the experience you gain at university is not just about the skills you learn. It's about the people you meet, the exposure, the freedom, the resilience, the adaptability. All of those things that come into surviving university is important lessons to learn. But that being said, I'm completely in agreement that our expectations at the output side is often wrong, and we need to be willing to put in the work to upskill, and not only upskill, but support and mentor young people in this country.
Yeah. So we'll talk about the crowdfunding element of what you do, and I like that very much. But how does the fake qualifications, of course, pass through the checkpoints until people are employed? Because you find some of them they're working for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and it gets discovered that actually you don't have the degree that you have. You don't have a computer science degree that you claim to have, but you have another degree that we don't need. And it gets discovered much, much later. How does it pass through the initial stages of interviews and so on? Are companies sometimes complacent as they try to rush and be competitive and try to get people that they think they want?
I think there's an element of complacency, but I also think when you start an interview process, and we've done this, and I employ my team, you look at the piece of paper during the first round. Then you put that piece of paper away and you start having the conversation. You then buy into that person. And then usually, if you want to employ that person, you need to do a reference check. Often companies don't want to spend the money all the time doing the reference checks. So they just decided that they trust this person on face value, the qualification seems legit, and then they hire the person. And I think that's often where that creeps in. I think with with first-time job seekers and first-time applicants, you might also look with less scrutiny, because it's not a high-profile job, so you don't really have to jump through the rings as much as maybe a very senior job. So I do think there's an element of responsibility on the employer's side, and we know some people don't get caught out. The other thing that's starting to happen, Bongi, which is also really important for first-time job seekers, is employers are looking more and more on social media. Before I employ anyone, I do a public media search and a social media search. And you find interesting things there. And the new law that I spoke about earlier means that you can also prosecute someone that lies on social media. There's now consequences for lying on social media, saying that you have credentials or have a job that you don't have. And if the employer at the end of the day, if you are employed by them and then they see on your social media that you've lied, that is enough for them to then prosecute you or put you on this registry. I had a friend that worked in an architecture firm last year, and she was on her Facebook. She made a comment on a photo of a building, and the next week she got into work and she was served with a warning because that building was a client building and she didn't know. She didn't work on that project, she didn't know. And she got a warning because she made a Facebook comment on a building that she didn't like. So young people need to be very, very aware of their social media presence and what they say on social media.
We are not the only ones in this jam. I mean, if you look at the 2015 New York Times report on a $1 billion industry consisting of close to 4,000 diploma mills. These, of course, are fake universities where they sell these certificates and so on and so on. Couple that with technology as well that is readily available on digital platforms. So sometimes it gets very, very difficult for companies to spot that these are fake qualifications.
Absolutely. I think you're 100% correct in saying, we see in places like America, we've heard the stories of celebrities paying for their children to get into universities. We've heard all of these stories. This happens, and because the technology, young people, not just young people across the board are becoming smarter with tech and they're able to fake it. I do think that technology cuts both ways, and then on the employer side, the employers will become smarter, have already become smarter, and will figure out ways to catch people out. I also think if you do your reference checks and you pick up a phone and you speak to someone on the other side, that you are able to spot these fake qualifications easier. There are ways to do it. You just need to put a little bit of effort in it.
So let's look at your company then, Feenix. You spoke about crowdfunding, and I got excited just a little bit. It's not a phenomenon that is quite popular in South Africa. Talk to us about it, especially in the area of education. How do you go about doing it, and the success rate of this?
So, Bongi, we started Feenix as a result of Feed Must Fall. In 2015, 16, even 17, there was a clear need for alternative ways of finding money to pay for your education. And we thought that, as South Africans, there's so much passion, so much patriotism, so much community, and people often come together to support each other. And that is basically what crowdfunding is. Crowdfunding is raising small amounts of funding from a large group of people, and therefore you can raise big amounts. So it's the same thing that you do in your church, at your mosque, at school, when you do a little fundraiser, right? We have taken that and we've just put that online. We've formalized that process so that people that want to support young people on the education journey can find these students, and they know that they've checked, they know that they're legit, they know that the information is correct. And it's a place for students to go that don't have any alternative avenue to ask their communities to support them in raising funds for their education. So that is the principle and the concept behind Feenix. We launched in 2017, so we're just over 2.5 years old. And we've been able to support the South Africans, everyday South Africans, raise over 30 million rand for tertiary education. And we've helped around 1,000 students fundraise towards their education and pay off their debt.
Yeah. What is your criteria? Because, I mean, we find a lot of, as it were, missing middle. Students who do not qualify for NSFAS but also cannot afford to pay for the universities. You'll find that parents are within a certain threshold that cannot be accommodated by NSFAS, right? But you find that they are struggling. They are simply struggling. They cannot pay for the university. So who do you look at?
University is expensive. Tertiary education is very expensive. And it's not just, the NSFAS programs, the government programs that exist, is for families with a household income of below 350,000. So at Feenix, what we include the missing middle, exactly that student you're speaking about now. The parent that has 4 or 5 children, the parent that's, a single parent household. So our criteria for students to join Feenix is you need to be South African, you need to be a permanent resident, or have an official refugee status. Then you need to be accepted into a public university. So we only at this point supported 26 public universities. And then thirdly, your household income for the year needs to be below 600,000. That's the only criteria. Once you meet that criteria, you can go onto our website, register, we verify your documentations, which is your ID document and your fee statement from the university, and then you can go live and make a profile on Feenix. So we help the missing middle, but we also support postgraduate students that often don't have a place to go, and we also support students that finished their degree, but they don't have, they're sitting on historical debts, and they now don't know where to go because they're out of the system already. We also support those students.
So what's the interest in taking up this crowdfunding, both sides, from a student side but also from the investor side?
From a student side, it's an alternative avenue. We're saying if you don't have anywhere to go, you don't qualify for bursary because you maybe not the 80% or 90% student, you might be sitting at a 60 or 70%, but you still deserve to go to university and continue your studies. So for students that don't have an alternative, that can't qualify for NSFAS, that don't have a bursary, or that's sitting in a postgraduate degree, this is a place for you where you can go and formalize your fundraising efforts. And it's proven to have worked. There's 1,000 students that have successfully done this, so it works. You just need to commit to yourself and put a little effort in. On the funder side, there's a lot of advantages. First of all, you're actually contributing to help more young people get access to education and ideally get access to the job market, which is good for all of us in terms of the economic growth and changing the face and the future of the country. Secondly, if you're not a person that wants to do this because you want to commit or you want to do this out of charity, you can get a tax benefit. By supporting young people, there's a tax benefit for you for funding a student as an individual person, and then as a corporate, there's a whole lot of BE points that you can earn by paying someone's education. So there's a lot of benefits for both individual and corporate funders and for students in doing this in fundraising for education.
So quickly, how do people get in touch with you, those who are interested from both ends, students and the funders?
The easiest thing, Bongi, is to just go to our website. I want to just explain what the name Feenix is. So it's not Feenix the bird, like we've heard, right?
Yes.
Feenix is based on a wordplay of mixed fees, having no fees. So if you want to Google Feenix, if you want to find out more about Feenix,
I like it very much. Okay, Feenix.
Yeah, mixed fees. And actually, it was students that came up with it. We asked students that to come up with a name, and they came up with this name. So it's having no fees. And so you can just go to the website, and that is www.feenix, and like I said, that's FEENIX.org. And you can find us there, and there's a support number, there's a WhatsApp number, everything there for you to chat to one of our support people as a funder or as a student.
Very clever name. I like it too much. Thank you very much, Leana. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, Bongi.
Leana de Beer is the Chief Operations Officer at Feenix. They do crowdfunding for students. Education is central to what we do here on SAFM, I tell you. We will be talking education, pretty much every week until everyone is settled, I guess.